Anyway, welcome to the Revolved Realty Hammer and Sales Real Talk.
There it is.
Show, because we are real live, and we are having some technical difficulties that are typically attributed to operator error on my part. But anyway, welcome in. This is the show where we talk about real estate. We talk about the market, really all things real estate. So if you can hear us now, let us know.
Now
because
we have sound.
Sound. Okay, good deal. Well, anyway, so as you can tell, Chelsea dressed up this week because Chelsea is working on flips today.
Yes.
One of the things that Chelsea does, other than being one of the best dadgum realtors in town.
The best.
The cheeks. You've got the beard, the cheeks, the old fart.
The cheeks. That's a weird
You've got
one.
those
The cheeked realtor.
cheekbones. Yeah.
No.
Cheeky.
No.
The cheeky.
One of the things Chelsea is incredibly good at is taking an old, dilapidated house and turning it literally into an HGTV showplace. And Chelsea's house typically stay on the market that quickly. So one thing I thought we'd talk about, and Zach, you've got a lot of experience in this as well, is remodels, but not just that, but expectations of buyers and sellers when it comes to remodels. Because we've talked before about everybody wants an HGTV house, but not every house is an HGTV house, at least not until she gets a hold of it. But let's just kind of go from there. Chelsea, when you are looking at remodeling a house or flipping a house, what are some of the things that you have to consider before you'll take on a project? And I know price of the property is one, but we do have a lot of flippers and wholesalers who watch this show, thousands in fact, who would probably like to know what are your parameters for getting started?
Number one is price. You've got to have the margins. I probably have to have more margins than most.
Because you do high end?
Yeah, just because of the amount of work we actually put in it. I was talking to my business partner the other day, and I was like, man, one of our last houses, it just turned out really great, and we had such a huge response. And he goes, I bet if we threw $110,000, $115,000 at every flip, they'd all be great. I mean, not saying that they're not all great, but they'd all be over the top and ridiculous and like you'd see on HGTV.
But can you recoup?
Yes, in certain situations. We're not going to spend $115,000 on every single house we get if there are margins there and it's necessary. This particular house, we did, everything new. New roof, siding, windows, gutters, garage door. We added an HVAC unit and replaced the old one, so 2 new units. We did a $7,000 staircase. Exactly. It was ridiculous.
The staircase to heaven?
Yeah,
basically.
This is very cool.
It should have been, huh?
It looked like it.
Yeah.
But the key when you're flipping a property, and there's 2 types, right? There's the flipping for profit, and then there's like we're going to buy a house, remodel it for ourselves. And so you have to look at those 2 very differently. Because in both cases, what I try to get my clients to understand is it's still an investment. Whether you're buying a house to flip it, to live in it, it's still the largest single investment you'll ever make in your life. Yeah. But second of all, you make your money when you buy it, not when you sell it.
Right.
And there's a formula that and I guarantee you could lay out your formula and it would be very like algorithmic almost. Like you've got to buy it at X percentage of X price, and you can put, based on those numbers, a certain number into it.
Yep.
And it boils down to just straight up math.
Yeah.
And numbers never lie. And so that's where a lot of people that watch too much HGTV think, well, I can do that. Well, sure you can. You can throw so much money at something and hire enough contractors to make it look really, really pretty, but you'll never sell it for what you've got in it unless you use a mathematic-based approach. And that's where people that don't have the knowledge, that's where they get in trouble.
Right.
And that's what we try to help our clients avoid. And we work with investors. We work with people who are buying to renovate, and that's the same message for both of them. It's a great investment if you know what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, what's crazy to me is that out of about, 75 buyer clients in the last 2 or 3 years, I've had 2 who have been open to a fixer-upper.
Which is crazy to me.
Which is crazy. Everybody else wants new, or they just don't want to have to deal with it, or I don't know, but I've had 2 clients.
Sorry, that's us.
Who have actually wanted to do a fixer-upper, and we've actually looked for houses who have that margin. I mean, they don't have to have the kind of margin that I have to have because they're going to live in it for, but
they just need positive equity when it's all said and done.
Right.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think they are advert? You would think with the show Fixer-Upper that people would want a fixer-upper.
Well, my wife and I laugh at it all the time when you get these people on Chip and Joanna's show or any of these and they're like, well, that's a little bit too much of a fixer-upper for me. Like, the show is literally called Fixer-Upper. Like, it's a terrifying thing. And the one thing that we're working through with one of our clients right now is the ability to see it. Like, I can walk into a room and I can see what it'll look like when I'm done with it. Mm-hmm. I have that visualization ability. My wife, on the other hand, shout out to my wife, she's watching. She is absolutely not going to be able to see in her mind what it's going to look like. So it's scary for her, and she's learned over time that I kind of do halfway know what I'm talking about some of the time, and she can run with it on that. But for clients that don't know you that well, look, you're not Chip and Joanna Gaines. Yeah. That's the bottom line. Yeah. And so it's tough for them to trust that when they're under contract to buy it at the end of the experience. And that's what's terrifying. Does it make sense? Sure it does.
To them.
Right.
But to us, we're like, wait a minute. We can do this for you. We know how to do this. Look at our portfolio. It's just a scary thing.
Yeah. Well, I think the market is better, though, once the property is done. Like the Chelsea had a house recently on Woodmore that literally sold before we could get out there to do an open house. Mm-hmm. But that was the finished product. So there's a big difference between someone walking into a house that needs to be fixer-upper, remodel, and Zach is right, because they don't have that vision. They can't see it. Mm-hmm. And then walking into a house of yours when it is completely done, and it literally is like a brand new house. Yeah. And are they really interested in the work that's been done, or do they ask you everything, or are they just interested in the end product?
I really think they're interested in the end product.
It's the only thing that matters.
Yeah, I mean, if it looks great, if it makes sense, if the layout is functional, like, why ask questions?
No, it's what we wanted. It's what it looks like. What we wanted. It's like, you can't buy it, because what I love about the old houses, the fixer-uppers, if you will, the ones that need fixer-up,
don't make fun of the elderly.
It's the character of it all. It's you get to incorporate. Like our new office in Athens was built in 1890. Right. 1890. Well, we've got new HVAC, new plumbing, new, you name it, it's new. But we've got all the original transoms, all the original windows, all the original doors and hardware. You can't buy that anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that's what's cool about it for me. And at the end of the day, if I get the modern conveniences that I want, with the charm of what was there before, it's a winner for me.
But sometimes there is no charm before, and you just got to gut the whole thing.
Burn it down and start over.
Basically.
Yeah, and you have done that a number of times. I mean, literally taken it down.
Not burned it down,
well,
yes. But
not burned it down, but literally taken it down. I tend to
exaggerate from time to time.
You've literally taken it down to the studs, and even taken the studs out.
Yeah.
And started all over again. And not everybody who does what you do is going to flip to that extreme. Let's talk about that for a minute, because there are different levels of flipping.
Yeah.
There are the folks that get in cheap, put as little as possible into it, and try to sell it relatively inexpensive.
Whatever. They make so much more money than me.
Absolutely.
Let's be honest.
Yeah. But that's your personal choice, right?
I don't want to be a PNC flipper. Paint and carpet, not my thing. Right. I want to add character. I want to add fun tile and amazing vanities. I don't want to just paint over what was there and be done with it. That's just not my style. And if it's yours, that's awesome. But yeah, it's not what I want to do.
There's a market for all.
Yeah.
There's the builder grade flips. There are and we all know guys that will go into a house and just do the bare minimum. Just do paint and carpet and put it back on the market. But their houses don't sell for what you sell for.
No.
And they don't have, the reputation that you have. And I think that's one thing that's very important to talk about is when you do buy a house that has been remodeled or a flip house, you need to be aware of kind of what you're getting. You know what I mean? Yours are more higher end, but not everybody wants or can afford a higher end.
Right.
But you do need to be just because someone's put paint on a wall, that doesn't mean it's fixed all the problems behind the wall, right, Zach?
Well, I did 2 with a client recently. One just sold. We closed last Friday, and then the other one is on the market now. And they're flips by the nature of that word, but really and truly, they're more like updates.
Remodels.
So we went in. I wouldn't even call it a remodel. No. It's an update. We went in, we put brand new flooring, we painted every room, the bones were good, put new granite in, bought new appliances.
Is this the house on Pinckney? Coriander.
Pinckney sold, Coriander just became available again this on Monday. Okay. So it's a gorgeous house. I mean, we've got we put in the life-proof flooring, waterproof, scratch-proof, break-proof. We didn't go with the straight-up hardwoods because at the end of the day, at that price point, that I wouldn't want hardwoods. You know what I'm saying? Like I want something my son he's potty training right now. I need something he can pee on, and I'm okay with it. And so at the end of the day,
that won't change as he becomes a teenager. Trust me.
It's an update. It's not a flip, and that's where the terminology doesn't change for most people. But when someone say I flipped a house, very literally speaking, you took it, put something in it, and flipped it for another price. I get it, but it's an update. And so those are a lot safer as an investor for sure, because you've got good bones. You're not going to find asbestos and lead-based paint and mold and all that. But there's also, less you can do with the house. And that creative process is what I enjoy about it, is being able to move a wall. I saw what y'all did with the last house where you literally – changed the laundry room from one spot to another spot. You took the dormers on the front and pushed them out to give these beautiful benches and it just you structurally changed the house. And so that's just the 2 levels. I mean, there's levels of flipping, and that's where, again, if you're out there and you're like, I want to flip a house, let me urge you to start with the update.
Yeah.
Start with the update. Find a house you just need to put flooring where you can use your design styles to paint walls, granite colors, flooring colors. Very low risk.
Yeah.
Not so much on the reward category either, but you can go out and you can make a decent return without putting yourself at risk of losing your entire investment.
Yeah. And a lot of it's just semantics, because as a flipper, what you do is you buy the house, you remodel it to just flip it, means to put it back on the market quickly. The buyer doesn't go out and say, I'm going to go find me a flip house.
Right.
But they are attracted to remodeled, updated houses. So flipping is something that's done on our side of the table. On their side, where they're the buyer, they're more looking for the remodel updates, right?
Oh, yeah. And realistically, I have some clients who will say, I want a new house or I want a remodeled house. And honestly, remodels are kind of hard to come by. I've seen a whole lot of wording on MLS that says completely updated, completely remodeled.
Yeah, what does that mean? What
in 2002 is what they left out. So 16 years ago, sure, that looked great with your flesh toned walls and, brown tile and stuff. But that's just flesh tones. I just, but realistically, if it was updated in the last 2 years, I would say, great, that counts as a, new remodel. But if it's 10 years plus, don't be misleading. I don't want to have to scroll through 40 pictures to find out you're lying to me about the quality of the upgrades just so I can send it to my clients. Sorry, that was a PSA for other realtors.
That happens all the time.
Yeah, it does.
All the time. And I made the mistake of calling something it wasn't. And the actual investor texted me and was like, "Hey man, what you said is not what we did." I'm like, I didn't even realize that. Thank you for that. And so there are a lot of really good ones out there that care about transparency. They care about being honest, but there are a lot that are going to intentionally be misleading.
Yeah.
And you don't do that. Don't be that guy.
Well, I actually saw a listing where the pictures were 5 or 6 years old. They were taken when the house was first remodeled, and they're on the MLS listing today, which I'm pretty sure is against the law in just about every state. But anyway, this is the Revolved Realty Hammer and Sales Real Talk show, and we are talking about flipping and remodeling. If you do have comments, drop them in below. Wow, we've reached 95 people already. Wow, I wonder if there's anybody we know out there.
Oh, shout out to my buddy Heidel out there in Nicaragua.
Watching this in
Hey,
Nicaragua.
that's
Wow.
It's my
cool.
main man right there.
All right. So, all right, let's go back on topic then.
Sorry.
If someone comes to you and asks you to do a remodel, because you also do a lot of remodels,
Yes,
right?
we do.
And Zach was talking about the house on Coriander that was just done. By the way, you staged that house and
huge.
made
a
a
huge
Biggest
huge
difference.
difference, right?
Biggest mistake we made was not staging it beforehand.
Talk a little bit about that.
Well, there are spaces in like this house is beautiful. It's beautifully done. It's beautifully updated. It's everything in a neighborhood is priced well. It's in a neighborhood people want. But there was one particular space that was hard to define. It was just hard to define. It was hard to walk into a vacant living room the way this house is laid out and say, that's where my kid's going to play with his toys.
Right.
And that's where, and so we waited too long and then we went in and staged it. And it made all the difference in the world. Had we done that out of the gate, probably it would have sold very quickly.
Yeah.
And so that's another piece of it that that's an expenditure that you need to count on.
Yeah.
And we just didn't. And so the staging process is a lot of fun. One, but two, it just makes a huge difference.
Yeah, because people can actually see how the room is going to function.
Well, it goes back to what I said earlier. People have a really hard time visualizing what it's going to look like. I mean, I walked in and I was like, okay, that's where my couch would go. My TV's going to go there.
Right.
In my mind, I could see it, but a lot of people clearly couldn't, because the biggest feedback we got was the layout's weird.
Yeah.
I loved the layout. Isolated bedrooms on one side of the house, and the entire other house was the living space. Big open kitchen, dining room, eat-in kitchen, and then a bonus room off the back with laundry way back on the other side. And I loved it. Big French doors on an office when you walk in, but the layout was a problem.
Yeah.
Well, it was a problem because people couldn't see it.
Yeah.
They didn't know what it would look like with furniture, so we put furniture in there. And
So I know you had issues with the layout.
Yeah, I showed
Yeah.
the house.
Yeah.
It was your feedback that pushed us to do something. I mean,
Zach was going, that damn Chelsea.
Yeah.
He just won't shut up about the layout. So we'll talk about, what would you have done in that house then? If you had taken that house on as a flip remodel, would you have moved some walls? Would you reconfigure?
Yeah, I probably would have knocked out a wall.
Which wall?
Yeah, and
the wall in between the study and the living room.
Okay.
Right.
And it wasn't off the table, but the economics of that particular deal inhibited that. I mean, we bought that one at the courthouse steps, and we were bidding against some folks that.
I was about to say a lot of competition.
A lot of competition that either does or doesn't know what they're doing. I won't comment on that, but they pushed the price to a point. My client's awesome. He was just like, I'm going to get this house, and so we did. And so the economics of that changed our ability to go in and tear walls out. Yeah. And it became an update rather than a full-blown remodel.
But that's a good point. He kind of got emotional about it and said, I'm going to get this house.
Yeah.
And that changed the math. And that's one thing that I see happen is people they'll forget the math, which is exactly what you said, these are the numbers, but then emotion gets involved and they're like, screw it, I'm going to get this no matter what. And then all of a sudden their math goes out the window.
Now, to be clear, I mean, he was very clear on his math. I mean, it wasn't like an emotional reaction. He just decided he wanted it.
He wanted it. This is what he was going to do.
And the economics still work, even if we don't move that wall.
Right.
And so it was like, we're still he's in a great position to recoup his money, make a solid return on his investment. It just changed. And I would say he was smart enough to recognize that and say, I can go at this price and do this, or I can go here, and that takes this option off the table. Where people get in trouble is they get emotional, and then they still move forward with a plan that no longer is sustainable with the economics of that deal, and then they're in a spot.
Yeah, or they'll take on a property and they won't track costs. They just kind of go with their gut. They like this granite. They're going to put it in the $80,000 house. What
marble in our $72,000 house.
One thing I do want to say is, since he bought it at the courthouse steps, I'm assuming the layout was unknown. I mean,
he hadn't been in the house.
I can't comment on that.
Okay. Most of the time, I know there are ways, but every single house that I have bought sight unseen, just based on like the location and the price that I can get it at, those have been some of my best ones. The Blue Bungalow indicator, that was sight unseen. It was a hot mess. We should have torn it down and started over, but it turned out like beautifully. And then Woodmore, the one that we just finished, we hadn't seen it. We had no clue of the layout. We were a little bummed when we saw that the garage held the laundry room and that the kitchen was like, 10 by 5. That was a little weird. But yeah, they've turned out the best. So
was that luck, or was that you taking that sow's ear and making a silk purse out of it?
Oh, wow.
Hey, you like that reference?
Whoa.
Yeah. I grew up on a farm.
Maybe a little bit of both.
A little bit of both?
Yeah. But you just, in this business, if you're in the flipping business, you have to be willing to take risks, like buying houses that you have no clue what they look like on the inside. You have to be willing to take risks and hope that they pan out, and, knock on wood.
So far, so good.
Here's a real question. How many flips have you had an opportunity to buy that somebody else tried to flip, ran out of money, stopped?
It didn't call you.
And then called you.
Mm-mm.
It hasn't happened. So I got a call not long ago. And I was told there was an X number of dollars required to finish this flip. So I'm like, if that's the case, I'm absolutely in. The economics work. And let's just call the number 25,000. Mm-hmm. And I took my contractor out there, and it was 75,000. And at that point, you're well beyond what the house is even going to sell for. And it's like, again, warning, urgency, whatever. Like, do not get into this if you don't have a clue what you're doing, because you will lose your shirt.
And don't go off of what somebody who's trying to sell the house says it needs and repairs. You do your own due diligence. You take a contractor out there. You count every single window and every single interior door that needs to be replaced because there's massive holes in them. You count everything. You get your roofer out there to measure the roof. I mean, literally do your due diligence and do not rely on what somebody else is saying the repair cost is going to be.
Oh, you mean to tell me that somebody's trying to sell me something might intentionally mislead me so that I may in turn buy what they're selling?
Yes.
No way.
Sucks.
So snarky at these poor people. Well, but you make a really good point. How often do you see someone who has seen a flipping show on TV? And I mean, my goodness, there are shows on TV about first-time flips and what a train wreck they usually are.
Those shows are also a train wreck.
They are.
Well, they are, but I love to watch them. Yeah, but, I watch them to see who's going to get hurt. But and it's kind of sometimes the things they do, you have to wonder if they made the buyer aware of what they did. Just, you know what I mean? Yeah. So how often, Chelsea, do you talk to folks who have gotten in, tried house flipping, learned a lesson, and left?
I mostly talk to people who want to get into it and haven't yet.
And they want to pick your brain?
To pick my brain. They want advice. That's fine. I'm an open book. I'll give advice. That's I'm okay with talking about what I do. But, if there are those people like locally that have attempted a flip and maybe it didn't go so well, maybe they lost money on it. I mean, I don't think they're really going to be out there saying,
I suck at what I do.
Yeah. I don't think that's going to be like a big, known fact. I talk to more than enough people who want to get into it,
Well, what do you know now? Because you literally flipped your first house in high school. I mean,
I was in college.
Well, it felt like high school to me.
I was 19.
Okay, well, you were still 19. You flipped what have you learned along the way? What do you know now after 11 long, hard years of flipping in X number of houses? If someone does come to you and say, hey, Chelsea, what should I get into this? If so, what is the advice that you give them?
Well, where is your money going to come from
That's a big one.
The biggest. Yeah, I've been blessed with investors.
Hi, Mom.
Who, she's amazing and she loves to participate in the process, and we have a very similar design style. So I love to have her participate in the process, and, she's in there helping me clean. Do you have that support? Do you have that help? I mean, first of all, where's your money coming from? Second of all, do you have the support of your friends and your family? Third, are you going to see it through to the end? Because if you don't budget to allow yourself to see it through to the end, I mean, you can't sell that house for what you got into it if you run out of money and it's, 75% done. People want a finished house. or they want an unfinished, very discounted house. So just, it boils down to money and support. And what's so funny is that the first house I flipped when I was 19 years old went on the market recently after about 10 years. And I looked at it and they hadn't changed a thing, but oh my gosh, my design style
changed? Talk about
exponentially.
That.
Oh my gosh.
Were the walls flesh colored?
No, they weren't. That one was kind of a specific scenario where I've had a very limited budget. Like I flipped it with $15,000.
Whoa.
I haven't flipped a house that required less than $35,000 since then.
Yeah.
And the one that did require $35,000 was a 1,200 square foot house. I mean, it was tiny. So, I had a very limited budget. I had classes Tuesday and Thursday, so I was coming home Thursday night and driving back to school on Tuesday morning and just working through the weekend. And, it just, yeah, guys.
Sorry.
I think
so it's
Zach gets comfortable. He's like,
I just kind of kick it back.
So it was just a totally different situation.
Sorry, Dad.
But yeah, my design has changed exponentially.
And now knowing that you're going to put way more money into a flip than you used to, I guess you have to do the reverse math. It's what Zach was talking about. You make your money on the front end, knowing that you're going to put $100,000 into a property. You've got to know, number one, where it's going to sell at after it's renovated. Number two, where can you buy it? Because you do make your money on the front end. Well,
and it's also heavily based on size. So yeah, I can put $115,000 into a 2,600 square foot house, but will a 1,800 square foot house need that much? Probably not. So I do it based on square footage. If I know that a neighborhood can uphold, $105 a square foot after renovation, then I know my margin and I know how many dollars per square foot. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
I need to get it for on the front end.
Well, can we talk about the one piece that nobody talks about in flipping? And whether it's your money or an investor's money, there will be debt service cost. Whether it's actual interest payments, if the money is leveraged, or whether it's the time value principal of the money, like there is a debt service cost. And that is a number that no one that doesn't do this on a regular basis thinks to factor in to their flips. And it's something you've got to make room for because it will eat your margins alive.
Yep.
Right. People don't think about the debt service. They don't think about the monthly payment and the insurance, and they think it's going to sell typically quicker than
insurance.
Naked dwelling.
Vacant.
Oh, I'm like, wow, I haven't heard
vacant dwelling
of that.
insurance.
That's awesome.
Who's your insurance agent? No, I'm just kidding.
It's so stupid. Sorry, but it is. It's so high.
Yeah.
And I'm paying vacant dwelling insurance on 6 houses right now. So it's like $1,000 a month just for insurance.
When you do a flip and you're sitting there doing the math, how many months of holding costs do you factor into your equation?
Typically 3 to 4, just because we try to stay on like an 8 to 10 week schedule. And then I try to be very optimistic on it selling quickly.
I do 120 days.
Yeah.
That's and I hope that. I mean,
does that include renovation time? Or
that's from the day I purchased to the day that I no longer have to pay that debt service cost. So from acquisition to liquidation, and if you do it well enough, you should be able to acquire it, flip it, assuming you don't run into crazy issues behind the walls or in the crawl space or slab or foundation issues or whatever. You should be able to knock it out and get it turned. And in this market, the sales cycle is supporting 120 days. And that gives me a little bit of, hopefully, a little bit of wiggle room.
Yeah.
But you always add a factor of 12, 15, 20% to everything because there's so much about this that is unknown. But if you do it that way, then your margins actually grow on the back end because you factored in absolute worst case scenario all the way to the end. And because you're good at what you do, all those worst case scenarios didn't hit, and now your margin grew instead of shrunk. And you're like, whoa, I'm actually pretty good at this.
Yeah. What do you say to those people that say, well, I'll just raise the price?
Yeah.
I got to put another $5,000 in, but I'll just raise the price.
Well,
people really think that's how it works.
Don't count on that.
Well, the question that you have to ask yourself is it something that will raise the price $5,000, or is it you just want a different color? You want an expensive tile that you can only source from a Moroccan desert. So, like, if it's something that will functionally raise the value of the house, then great, go for it.
But people, what they'll do is they say, well, I'm not going to cut into my profit. I'm just going to raise the price. And that really is kind of
those people probably shouldn't be in this business.
Right.
Our buddy John Morey, who is a master at flipping and rent-to-owns, that sort of thing. Flipping, you need to know the numbers. It is a job. If you want to do well and make a living at this, you have to do volume. 1, 2, 3 flips a year as a hobby. Many fail because of miscalculations and not knowing the market. Truth, right? You agree? You have to know the numbers. You have to know the market. And the market changes quickly. You may be doing a remodel that you think is going to bring this one day, and then 4 months down the road, it might be different.
But we hope not.
We're kind of banking on that not being the case.
We are banking on the market going this way.
And I think in North Alabama for the next 5 years we have that.
Good. Yeah.
We have that. I mean, and at some point it will turn, and when it does, all these flippers should become landlords if they're smart. Because that's when you buy your long-term holding properties that will sit and create. And guess what? In another 5 years, when the cycle of the market returns, those houses you rented for the last 5 years, you flip them, sell them again, and start the whole process all over.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to make money in this business if you know what you're doing.
It is. If you know what you're doing. That's the biggest step. So, all right, guys, that is 30 minutes. Hopefully that was helpful. Chelsea, what you got going on? You're dressed to, I assume, hit a job site? Or?
Hit a job site. Yeah, I've already been at a job site this morning and delivered some siding, and then I'm going to go check on a project that we're doing for a client in Harvest, and then I'm going to go install some door stops, and then I'm going to go check on some hardwood floors.
So you actually do labor?
Yeah.
She can swing a hammer? Come on.
Yep. Zach, what you got going?
I got some clients in from Oregon. We're going to see 12 houses today. Saw 8 yesterday.
Oh, my goodness. I hope your knee holds out.
Oh, it'll be rock solid.
All right. Well, I've got I've got an inspection
You're going
report.
to Hartsville.
I've got an offer, and I've got to go to Hartsville to deal with a donor.
Okay.
When the managing partner becomes a photographer, come on.
What are you going to do? Luckily, I do have a very nice Polaroid camera. You press a button, and the picture slides out. But
just spits out the bottom. It's weird. Crazy.
We appreciate you guys hanging with us this morning. If we can do anything for you, of course, revolved.com is our website. This is our Revolved page. Chelsea, how do they get a hold of you? You are, of course, Revolved, but you're also Hammer and Sales.
Yes. Find us on Facebook, Hammer and Sales. Find us on Instagram, Hammer and Sales. Find us on the website, Hammer and Sales.
All right. That's going to do it. Hey, we appreciate you watching. We'll see you next week. Hopefully, if we do another live.
We'll see you next week. We'll just get the kinks worked out before then, and my unreal partner over there will not be so...
It was a good thing there was no sound the first 2 minutes. Good
thing.
All right, guys. We'll see you later. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.